Egyptian priest who introduced Atlantis to the world, SONCHIS of Sais. Every time we think about Atlantis, the fabled lost city, continent, we think about Plato, the man who described its existence in his works, Critias and Timaeus. But have we ever asked ourselves, where does the original story from Atlantis originate? To understand more about Atlantis, we must venture out and learn more about Solon, a highly respected, that's debatable, and well-known Greek statesman who lived between 638 BC and 558 BC, respectively. Solon was a famous lawgiver of Athens and a poet, and he was notable also for his writings as well. As explained by Plato, Solon travels to ancient Egypt to learn more about the history of its country and look for potential trading outposts between Greece and Egypt. It is believed that in an ancient tale, Solon wrote about the mythical city continent of Atlantis, an elusive empire that has captured the interest and imagination of historians, archaeologists, adventurers, philosophers, and others for more than 2,000 years. So who wrote Atlantis first? Well, from what we were able to understand, it was an Egyptian priest of very great age named SONCHIS of Sais. Sais being an ancient Egyptian town in the western Nile Delta on the Canopic branch of the Nile. Solon, after his travels to Egypt, met SONCHIS, who in turn told him a great ancient civilization that had disappeared from Earth 9,000 years ago. Among many other things, it is believed that SONCHIS told Solon stories about a series of ancient empires that existed on Earth, natural catastrophes that made them crumble, and great wars that had raged civilization in the past. During his time in the city of Sais, Solon learned great information about Atlantis from SONCHIS, who described the incredible size and wealth of the Atlantean Empire as best as he could. SONCHIS explained that Atlantis' capital was elaborately constructed, where great temples and palaces were erected, adorned by exotic gardens made of silver, gold, and ivory. I don't know. Also, orichalcum is part of the story. I don't know why they omitted that. SONCHIS further described the capital of the Atlantean Empire as being made of massive walls, which in turn were surrounded by circular islands protecting the inner citadel of the metropolis. Once again, massive walls, which in turn were surrounded by circular islands protecting the inner citadel of the metropolis. That does not sound like the Rakata to me. I don't see any massive walls. And as far as circular islands, nope. You can't even tell you're in there if you're in there in person. But let's hold on here for a second and look at what Plato had to say about Sais, Atlantis, and the priest who allegedly introduced the world to Atlantis. First of all, we have to mention that the existence of SONCHIS of Sais is a matter of debate among experts who cannot agree whether or not he actually existed. Having said that, in Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC, Plato described through the voice of Critias how Solon traveled to Sais and met with the priests from the goddess Neith. It is there where an extremely old priest tells Solon about an empire that existed 9,000 years before him, which is at war with Athens. Eventually, this empire, identified as Atlantis, was destroyed by a great catastrophe. Plato does not mention in the name of the priest who told Solon about Atlantis, but Plutarch, in his Life of Solon, identified the priest as SONCHIS. Near Nilus' mouth by fair Canopus shores, and spent some time in the study of the Sophist of Heliopolis and SONCHIS the Sate, the most learned of all the priests, from whom, as Plato says, getting knowledge of the Atlantic story, he put it into a poem and proposed to bring it to the knowledge of the Greeks. So this means that the history of Atlantis can briefly be resumed like this. An empire existed 9,000 years before the life of Solon and the Egyptian priest SONCHIS. Atlantis eventually is destroyed by a catastrophe, and nearly all the records of its existence are lost. The only records remaining are shared among the priests of ancient Egypt. Eventually, Solon travels to Sais, where he meets an ancient priest who knew about Atlantis. Identified later as SONCHIS of Sais, this priest also explains to Solon that Atlantis was an extremely powerful empire that existed 9,000 years before them, as I've been always saying, and was eventually destroyed. Solon returns to Greece, where he mentions the existence of Atlantis. Later in Timaeus and Critias, written in 360 BC, Solon traveled to Egypt and that he learned about the existence of Atlantis from an ancient priest. Plato writes that Atlantis was located in Timaeus. For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia to boot. For the ocean there was at that time navigable. For in front of the mouth, which you Greeks call, as you say, the pillars of Hercules or Heracles, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travelers of that time to cross from it to the other lands, and from the islands to the whole of the continent over against them, which encompasses that veritable ocean. So listen once more. There lay an island, okay, for the ocean there was at the time navigable, for in front of the mouth, which you call the Greeks as the pillar of Heracles, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. So he's saying in front of the mouth, in front of. Well, if you're traveling from Greece and you're going towards the pillars of Hercules, that would mean that Sardinia is technically in front of them. He did not say beyond the pillars of Hercules. He said in front of them. Interesting. For all that we have here, lying within the mouth of which we speak, is evidently having a narrow entrance, but that yonder is a real ocean, and the land surrounding it may most rightly be called, in the fullest and truest sense, a continent. Now, in this island of Atlantis, there existed a confederation of kings, of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island, and over many other islands also, and parts of the continent. So, not only is the originator of the tale of Atlantis debatable, if you read it, and you can maybe see things from a different point of view and not be hung up on this whole beyond the pillars of Hercules business, it clearly states that in front of the mouth, which would be if I was going from Greece towards the pillars of Heracles, I would invariably run into where? Yes, that's right, Sardinia, aka Atlantis. Thank you very much. Now, all of you people that keep on harping on my video about, oh, you didn't mention all the people, you didn't spoon feed me the information. Well, baby, you've been spoon fed. I hope you didn't get too much information applesauce on your baby poos, baby millennials. Thank you very much. Proof that I'm the greatest researcher on the planet. Thank you.